Chef, what are we using up in the kitchen this week?
Yeah, flank steak.
I missed it?
Yeah, Doc didn't tell you he was out there getting some.
No, that'll be a conversation we have in the morning. You didn't put any green stuff on, did you?
No, not at all. Not at all. Some, did over some nice tomato pasta. Grilled steak and make your own pasta sauce. Nothing wrong with
Yeah, make tomato pasta without the pasta, without the tomato.
that.
I'm not much of a tomato fan, so.
Are you even conscientious?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Despite my mother's best efforts.
My wife had planted 20 tomatoes.
no, you didn't do it.
Yeah,
You can't go on.
She freezes salsa. Every neighbor in the world gets them.
We do BLTs and freeze their salads all the time.
Yeah.
Can't go wrong.
You did.
Angie, how you want to kick this off?
Oh, you guys want to start? Sure. You guys see somebody-
All right, so just the board's letter, items that they've listed out there. Obviously, we're wanting to try to do what's responsible for enhancement of salaries. We're still pulling some of that information together. Talking with Amy, we're still probably 10 days away from getting our Blue Cross and Blue Shield renewal. That would be probably the last kind of key cog in the wheel that we need to be able to kind of put that, whatever that package is gonna end up looking like. We need to have that piece of information. We have historically picked that up sometime around that first week of June. I anticipated maybe next week we might get an appetizer, if you will, some kind of indication of where that is or maybe where it's going, but haven't received anything yet to this point, so we'll just have to see what maybe next week brings. But liquidated damages the change is not in the dates, the change is in each one of the levels. $500 was added to each one of those levels over what is currently. The language pieces, the adjustments to make, if you look at page 4, we set a date in item 4. We set a date for the initiation of the longevity. And I think for us, it would just be easier to just have it before the September board meeting, the regular September board meeting, and not necessarily assign a date, because depending on how the calendar could fall, that may fall after that board meeting. So it's just simply saying prior to that September board meeting. The next item on the board's list is on page 5. There's some language in there on page 5 under salary dealing with the longevity, where if an employee resigns, dies, or becomes disabled during the year, employees will retain longevity stipend that they have received without penalty. The board would look to omit the resigns portion or adjusting the stipend date to maybe the June payroll as opposed to what is now paid out in the January, I believe, payroll for consideration. Page 6. If you look at page 6, leave number 4, written statements for extended absences. One of the things we might put in there, this is something Amy had notated, is that we might just put an example that such as notes from doctors would be possible add in to that particular item. And then on number 5, leave page 6. The deduction shall exclude all extra duty pay. This is something that Eric and I have had some conversations about previously. The board has had in their letter previously. And I think the The concern of the board is that should that absence fall during the time when the individual is supposed to be managing their extra duty assignment, because there's a language stipulates now it's excluded regardless. So board will seek some review and some consideration of that. Beyond that, the board did not cite any other items that we want to talk about or have negotiated. So
You wanna, can we go through questions on yours and then before we go through ours?
Sure.
Have you guys, has Amy indicated anything like as far as amount on health insurance?
she has not. You know, the Bucati dashboard has kind of given us glimpses, recognizing that I think it comes on a quarterly basis. We thought maybe at the beginning of the year, the first 6 months of the year, we looked pretty good, and then we've had some bills that have come in since. So it's hard for us to gauge where we are or where we're not in that renewal.
Okay, I'm just curious, because of the last 3 years, we've collected more in premiums than they've paid out by a significant amount. And just trying to figure out where the extra premiums had gone, those extra 3 years.
Those are,
Did they go back to lower premiums for the district, for our employees? Or, 175,000 extra in 2017-18, looks like around 140,000 in 2018-19. Those are significant amounts of premiums that are being collected.
yeah, we collect the premium and we pay the premium that Blue
Right.
Cross and Blue Shield sends. What you gotta also keep in mind is that if we don't hit that sweet spot, and I don't know exactly what that percentage is, they take the rest of that. There isn't we agree that we pay a full premium for employees, all of that's paid in. But if they don't pay out in claims, the balance of that dollar stays with Blue Cross and Blue Shield. That doesn't, that goes into their profit, their bottom line to be spent however that ends up getting spent. But that's nothing that the district retains or gets anything back from Blue Cross and Blue Shield. So, I don't.
Is that just part of the deal we have with Blue Cross Blue Shield, that they get to keep pocket extra money?
Well, I would equate that to this. You pay in premiums in your auto insurance. Maybe this last year you didn't pay any claim, you didn't get any claims, you didn't have hail damage, no busted windshield. Your insurance carrier took that. That's theirs to do with. However, this is no different. They market those. They market those premiums annually. We do have some conversation. We've been able to try to, because they haven't paid out all of that in claims, we've been able to try to leverage that to say that you should give us some discount on our premiums. But we don't get once the dollar is paid to Blue Cross and Blue Shield, if they only use 75 cents, we don't get the quarter back. Quarter stays with the company. So does that take into account that, I think we've been pretty upfront that, if we want to go and shop to try to leverage better pricing or better opportunities, we've been open to doing that. But we don't get the dollar, we don't get the quarter back, and we don't get to decide how they spend that quarter. If that makes sense. It would be nice if there was some mechanism where that came back to us. But they don't, I don't think you
Well,
If you can find it somewhere.
so the co-op staff this fall did get, like, every staff member got $25 back or $50 around Christmas time because of the overpayment in insurance, in the premiums.
I'm not aware of what that, I mean,
So,
I can
I
do some
mean,
checking, but I don't.
I know that, like, the co-op, whatever insurance they're using, they issued like a $50 money back for that premium overpayment to each person that works
It
for the
may
co-op.
be dependent upon the different companies and their philosophies. I mean,
Yeah.
I know
I mean, I don't know what, I would,
I don't know who
what
they have.
insurance is, but. it's
I think
just-
that, I'd have to go back and check for sure, but I think as recent as last year, we got, and I wanna say it was dental or
Dental.
vision or
It's
something.
dental.
But when we got that reimbursement back as the district, we put that back into the employees. That was part of, Amy put that back into a check, and I can find the example of that, but that would be about the only thing, and I don't know that it would be
Yeah.
more than $10 or $15 or whatever, but that is the only thing that I can think of where that was the case. But from a health insurance standpoint, which is obviously the biggest user, or biggest consumer of that premium, we don't have anything there.
This is just more curiosity. I think it's been 3 or 4 years since I've been on the negotiations team, and I know liquidated damages were negotiated then. And I know that we made some significant changes last year. I'm just trying to figure out the rationale with, again, adding another $500 to every level. Like, when we increased fairly significantly anyway over the last couple of years.
I think the goal is that, number one, our job is to try to make sure that we provide staff for the education of our students. And not only that, but provide staff for, as far as coworkers, for our teachers. And if we have individuals that leave late, then that puts us in the market that we're in, with the shortage that we're in, that puts us in a struggle. And so from an educational standpoint, and then from a colleague standpoint, our goal is to try to ensure that we are doing what we can to protect the district in that, and not have people that might leave us on the 1st of August or the middle of July and not be in a position where we can find a suitable replacement. The board's also given some, I can't think of an example right off the top of my head. I think we had one a year or so ago that had a military deployment and a reassignment. And I think the board, individual asked for a concession, which is allowed under the agreement, and the board consented to that. So the rationale is that, we're trying to protect education of our students, and we're trying to protect the teachers that are across the hall or on the other side of the wall, as far as that is concerned.
What was the one that we were talking about, Mallory, that I'm not really quite sure of the other day? Was it B or? Yeah. I agree. Was it B that we were talking about?
Yeah, I got that one too.
I think you have the notes on.
So on B, I think, we'd like some clarification, on the rationale behind the language change. Is it just to make it so that, resigning means that you don't have access to the longevity payment, or?
the board, I think the intent behind that consideration is that we're paying the longevity for the full term, if you will, the full body of work. And that includes the year that you're earning that longevity piece. And as it sits now, if I get paid in January, I can resign on the 1st of February and I still have that. But I've left the staff and I've left the district in such a way that would not be productive or at the very least suitable for kids. And so I think that the rationale there is that if you leave the resigns piece in, then the opportunity might be that we move the payment of that stipend to June so that the year is completed before the payment is made.
I think, I hate to keep asking the same question, but I have the same question on C. I'm just wondering, we've already got the language there that says an instance where abuse is possible. It's pretty, leaves a lot of leeway for definition about what that might mean. Could you help me understand why we're wanting to add language about doctor's notes?
I think that that has come at the request of staff who would like to know what we're looking for. I'd have to go back and make sure that I'm correct in that statement, but I believe that that's been a request of staff who would like to know what that is.
Yeah. I had a question on that one too, about being specific, because that's a slippery slope of what is abuse. I mean, abuse of leave could be one thing to one person, another thing to another, so that leaves it very vague.
Well, the only thing that the board is, the sentence is what it is. The consideration is just simply adding language such as notes from doctors. Your statements is, the bolded statement's already in the agreement. Board isn't necessarily wanting to change that. That's already been agreed to and part of that.
Yeah, no, what I was saying is that, and then taking it to when would a doctor's note need to be given? Like, that doesn't, the words are already in there, but then adding such as doctor's notes.
What's your question, Michelle?
I just know we've being very vague and adding things has gotten us in trouble before. So my question is, I guess if you're wanting to do something like that, it would need to be more specific. There shouldn't be any gray line of what you're wanting.
He's saying that if we're gonna require a specific kind of documentation, then that requires being a little more specific about what the need is for that documentation, like what constitutes.
Yeah.
That's kind of,
Abuse.
yeah. I think,
Because we're finding the word abuse just vague, like what is that? Like trying to figure out who's gonna decide what abuse is considered. on
Or
this.
excessive absences,
Um,
or what other documentation is the district looking for other than notes from doctors? If we're absent, I mean, anything, it already states in our language, anything 3 days or more has to be approved ahead of time.
Correct. I
So,
think
I'm not sure what other kind of documentation we're looking for.
again, I think the intent of that is to try to provide you with an example, which has come about at the request of staff, to try to add in. If the concern that you have is related to the whole sentence, then I think what would be advisable would be if you're going to consider a restructure of that, then you would put that together and you would bring that forward. If there is some clarity that is needed, then I think the board would entertain what that ought to be, or what you think that that ought to be.
And the last one, the deduction shall exclude all extra duty pay. So what you guys are wanting to add, a coach or an extra duty assignment, a supplemental assignment, if you're absent and you don't have leave time, you're gonna reduce the supplemental?
If you're not there today and you have a supplemental that has you assigned to an activity today, the language as it stipulates now is that you may lose the benefit, you may lose the salary for today, but you wouldn't lose the supplemental. So the point simply is that we would in that situation have to find someone to cover the supplemental assignment. So that there's a cost borne to the district for that. So if we're already doing that today because you're gone without approval or without leave and you take off, then the district bears cost associated with covering the supplemental. So the point that we're trying to make is simply that we're not dividing out the salary for the base, if you will, and the supplemental. They are one and the same, and that if you miss today, then whatever went into today is part of that consequence, if that makes sense.
What cost, is the district bearing from that? Like if somebody's sick and they're gone and they're,
I think that we're not talking about, the language of this is you've exceeded the leave that's authorized, you've gone without permission, those kinds of things. If you're the football coach and today is the day that you're supposed to be coaching, and we have deducted your teaching portion of that out, I still have to have somebody to go out and cover that assignment in the afternoon. So if the leave is gone for the day without permission or without authorization, then the pay should not stop with just the base. It should be with the assignment that you also have in the afternoon.
So the supplemental pay is broken down into a daily rate across the length of the supplemental contract?
It's just divided up amongst your 12 payments.
My question would be on that is, for instance, for me, I was on maternity leave last year. That would then affect short-term disability because they take all those numbers into effect for short-term disability as well.
You're talking about a protected leave in that instance that's not part of this piece.
so you're looking at a supplemental divided by 12, and then you're wanting to divide it by daily rate, or by days also to get daily rate? And so it's only during the season of the supplemental responsibility?
Yeah, so if you're in the off season and that's when you're gone, then that wouldn't apply because you're not obligated by the supplemental contract to be part of after school supervision and activities.
That would affect the year-round contract, such as cheer and dance, who are in band, who are
Wait, that,
continuing throughout
yeah,
the
I'm
year.
curious, because each supplemental is a different amount of time, like football season goes from August to November, but dance and cheer or band goes from August to May, I mean, it's not equal. Like, one coach would be deducted a lot more for a day versus another. Whereas our leave time is at the same rate across, it's a leave day. It just is kind of. Anybody have any other questions?
I kind of had one. You were talking earlier about the note from the doctor that was requested from employees. Why would employees ever see the note?
Say that,
Other
say that one
employees.
more time, Chef.
On C, talking about such as notes from doctors, that you said employees requested those?
No. So Amy has had individuals over time who said, so Chef Lowe is gone, it fits in that category, for example. Chef wants to know what he's supposed to provide to Amy
Oh, okay.
for that purpose, not that
Gotcha.
Angie wants to know why Chef is gone.
Yeah, okay, that's what I
No.
was saying.
No, it's that employee.
I was just making
relationship
sure that
with
was-
Amy. Yeah.
Can you get any clarification on D, on how that would be calculated for extra duty pay being reduced?
You'd have to look at what the missed time was and the assignment and when that occurred to make that calculation.
Right, but they're not broken down that way, so.
Yeah, cause like, what she was saying earlier, what do you do with the yearly versus the seasonal? Cause like, I have a culinary supplemental all year.
I think the
I don't
question
have
becomes,
even,
when is that absence and what is that? Is it an off-season, on-season? If it's something that's divided out over the course of a full year, your supplemental for culinary, maybe that is something that's done on a daily, figured out on a per day basis.
Yeah, Shear doesn't have an off season until April, so we would be on season all year. So that's like cheer, dance, band, I mean, there is no off season.
Sure.
So that's where that's gonna get a little weird.
I think essentially we're asking for a formula.
Okay,
A formula. I would be curious to know how many times it's happened where we've had instances where people don't have leave time and it's affected supplemental time as well.
Okay. I'll work through yours.
Yeah. I was just gonna ask a general question, not necessarily for the supplemental, but since you guys are here. It looks like the current 2020, 2021 numbers have come out. And Eudora had an increase over what our projected numbers were gonna be for September 20th enrollment, which equated to about 325,000 or more than that. What, have you guys talked about what's gonna happen with the excess there that came in? for,
You, I don't know what you're looking at, but there isn't an excess. And there was an increase, obviously, as far as what the base state aid per pupil was.
projected
Well, it was projected.
revenue increases for 2021,
So the difference between the projected is,
or that's for like this school year.
right. So when we came in with the projections last year that we negotiated on, the difference is that you have to look at the actual end, after the audit is finished, we actually have less than what we budgeted, less than what was projected, because we lost significantly in the area of at-risk. We lost some of our enrollment. So when KSDE provides a projection, that is their best guess estimate. They know what the base state aid is going to be, and then look back at what they think your enrollment is going to be, and that's what they base that projected number on. The difference between the projected number and the actual, our budget, we'll build a budget for more than what we're actually authorized to spend, because I have to have the budget published in July. We take a September 20th head count. The September 20th head count is what we actually get paid on. The problem with that then is that we have to go back in and rectify that, because I'm only authorized, I only have the authority to spend what's there. Based on our September 20th audited enrollment. The challenge with that is that we lost, because of the continuation of federal funds for at-risk, everybody got to eat free lunches this year, which is good if that is the family. The challenge with that is that we had a significant number of families who did not apply for benefits this year, that didn't do so because I didn't need to do that. I got the benefit without the application. So when they audited us, our number is significantly less in that particular line item up front, because of that. So even though I said I would have 300 kids, let's say, that received free lunches this year, and I only had 200 that actually filled out the application or were direct certification, I don't get paid on the 300, I only get paid for the 200. That makes sense. So that would be significant. And we also had an enrollment change because we had kids that were that left to go to virtual programming. So the caution that everybody, and I get that. I want to see what that projected number is. KSDE will start sending projected numbers for next year for us. The caution is that paints a picture that may not necessarily be accurate when we actually get into the school year after the September 20th. And I can give you the audited information.
Our numbers are like projected next year lower too, aren't they?
The drawback is that I would hope that we would be able to recover some of those kids. The problem that, as I just stated with that risk, in the news, I'm sure you're aware, the feds have continued that. So our dilemma is, will that at-risk dollar even be less? Because now we've got an extension for another year. We're trying to figure out a mechanism where when you enroll kids, you go in and we try to encourage you to complete that form, even though you still qualify without it. We got to get you to try to complete that, because that's the only way. That the legislature didn't change that particular process. They didn't make that. We advocated for a look back. Base that piece, or our weightings, if you will, on what our at-risk was during the 2019-2020 school year, and allow that to be the look back, because we're experiencing factors that we can't control. And they didn't make any changes to that.
So we did put in, because I know you can go back a couple of years with those numbers.
Okay, so you have the ability to use the best numbers for the total, but the weightings, which at-risk transportation, ESOL, vocational, those are all real-time weightings. Those are paid in real time. So you get the flexibility on the big stuff, the big number, to be able to go back and look back. But the weightings are the things that are paid out in real time. The weightings are the piece this year that hit us. I can share with you, I can share our audited numbers with you, Angie. That, in fact, I think it's probably presented in the board meeting. Trying to think when Jim was here, maybe in the January board meeting, maybe there was an audit report, December board meeting, he would have come in and done that. I can give you the cover page of that. That would show you what that looks like.
So under compensation, we talk about step and column movements, which I think is typical each year for the teachers and education and service. And then any increase, of course, the state's never in any rush at this point to move and negotiate when they haven't decided until the last minute, like on the eve of the last day that they can even work. So, A and B, we always never know until the last minute out there that we have. Item C, provide compensation for additional time spent during 2020 and 2021 school year with COVID. Teachers have put in a lot of extra time. CARES money would help provide for the additional time that teachers have put in, the extra work that people across this district have put in day and day out through this whole process this year. Probably even starting back in last spring when just trying to figure it out. I know just talking to other parents from other districts and hearing what their districts have done and their disbelief at what Eudora was able to accomplish during a time when those schools were just saying, all right, everybody's done, did nothing, that we were able to get our students to carry on in a semi-productive fashion in itself is kind of unbelievable that how we worked together through the process, and we've continued to do that this year to provide the best opportunities we can. So we definitely feel like now is the time to start talking about that extra compensation for the extra hours that teachers have put forth on that. We would like to look at raising the extra duty rates. The current rate's $12 an hour, and it's been that for 15 plus years, being comparable to other districts in our area around us, bumping that up
You have an idea what you're.
about $15 an hour. I would say would put us in comparison to what our peers are receiving in other areas or other schools that we compete against. There is an item that was kind of outdated, item G on their supplemental assignments on page 9 of the agreement. Let me pull it up real quick.
That's your
So
QPA.
supplemental, yeah, it was listed as QPA chairpersons it's kind of funny talking to some new teachers who were like, what is QPA? I'm like, I know, I've been on QPA before, that's a long time ago. And so we're looking to really get rid of the QPA because our BLTs, our building leadership teams, are doing a lot of that work for our accreditation process and meeting with teams coming in to accredit us. So we're looking to change QPA to BLT members to, on that particular supplemental assignment on G,
So,
or E, it's G on the contract under supplemental for letter E there.
so what you would advocate for under that would be, the statement would say $1,000 per building for BLT committees,
Membership.
or committee
Yeah.
members.
I think also there was the option to just get rid of it and then just say, use that line to say that BLT will be subject to extra duty pay, as some committees are.
Yeah, because we do, I forgot that you and I talked about that. Some of our other committees, if you're on the curriculum coordinating, they get pay when they clock in and clock out, some of those things, we could change it that way as well. What was something else? PDC committee also has supplemental pay for doing work where they clock in and out. So just either changing the G from QPA to BLTs, or adding BLTs as a paid assignment, because they're having to meet more and more, it seems like, especially with the accreditation process for COVID and, and stuff like that.
Just curious, do those typically meet like after hours? You know,
They're
it's-
usually after school. Yep. Do you guys have any other compensation before we move on, anything that you want clarified in there?
Did you have a number on B?
On B,
Or, I'm sorry,
on C?
Yeah.
We definitely have talked about $2,500 per staff member.
And you had mentioned CARES money.
Yeah.
That was the source,
CARES funding.
CARES funding.
We have some recent examples. Turner School District has they approved pretty hefty addition to their salary schedule and a one-time payment. Most recently, and current submitted CARES money to the board. A couple other districts had submitted for stipends for employees for the extra hours worked, and those were approved by the State Board of Education and the CARES
Tell me what Turner did again. I got this.
They did actually, it's like, their formula was your salary times 1/7 times 0.25. So it came out to about 3.5% of an increase on the salary on their current schedule. And then they also did a one-time payment issued in a separate check. But there's been, as school districts have started requesting and getting approved for CARES money, other school districts have already been approved for the use of stipends for employees who worked extra to compensate for the extra work, and obligations that were created.
I know that that some districts have added extended day. I know that some districts have extended their calendars. But I'm pretty curious about bonus stipend.
There
Language,
is stipends for work.
It's pretty explicit in the ESSER language that that's not an acceptable. So I guess where I'm
So
going is,
one school, additional stipends will be provided to certified staff for additional work days on planning required for in-person and remote students. And it was approved as an eligible expense. That was the language.
they're working additional time.
We're all
They're
working additional time.
The way you just read though, I'm trying to.
That was
I'm trying
their
to-
wording to this, for the CARES funding.
So the expectation was that, and if I'm wrong, you just have to clarify.
Yeah.
The expectation in that particular example was that staff worked longer in that window of time, that day, and they're compensating for that length of time that they were working.
For the additional time and planning, yeah, outside of their normal duties.
So, and it was more a look back as to what's happened the last year as opposed to in exchange for additional duties in the year ahead. I mean,
Right.
yeah, it was more for
Yeah, it was-
time
It
served.
was
whatever.
specifically
Yeah.
because of the additional duties created by COVID. And planning. I mean, we all faced that all fall when, basically you guys were trapped in meetings until almost midnight. I don't know how many times on a Thursday night, not knowing until Friday, there was no way we could plan for the next week. And Friday, spending every weekend trying to get ready for the next week.
And then, having the input that you have to turn everything virtual within 24 hours for a student who may be quarantined.
Yeah,
So being up till midnight, 2 a.m., trying to get that ready for the next day for the kiddo that's now in quarantine.
Not to mention you have to do contact-free delivery for ingredients for culinary.
yeah.
I mean, a lot of us, and especially in the hands-on part, we've had to do a lot of stuff that,
I don't know how many times I've dropped work off on porches.
Yep.
Just trying to get stuff to kids to
Yep.
continue, so they would be able to continue to work and meet
did you have
with.
some of those kids who don't have internet access, you know, somehow communicate with them, drop off.
So, anything else for compensation? The defined benefit then, looking at improving health insurance defined benefit for employees by adding language to the agreement, providing a monthly defined benefit that is at least equal to the cost of a monthly single premium for the plan, CMU-ZUA. That's what we currently have in our language. So the one is the language that would be updated for health insurance. Also, the rest of that, anything may choose to apply any extra amount. So let's say the HSA, the high deductible plan only costs $400 and there's still $25 left in that defined benefit. The employee could take the rest of that and apply to the HSA account or towards their premium for dental or vision insurance.
As long as they're in the HSA.
As long as they're in,
Because you couldn't
right,
do that if you were
Right.
in other plans.
and And then, the last thing that we were looking at is a reduction in enrollment fees for dependents of teachers. I have one question about that. Was the plan for the Chromebooks, like, after students had them for 4 years, like, that Chromebook was then going to those students? So like, our kids are seniors, they've had that Chromebook for 4 years. I know that was discussed at one point, that basically they paid enough in fees to pay for that particular device over the course of 4 years.
It was part of that overall conversation, but it is, all of those devices then become the waterfall pieces that we use at the other grade levels that aren't getting those new devices. So, we waterfall those down to the middle school down, to the elementary school right now as part of that plan, so.
How many are you seeing that you're able to waterfall down after seniors graduate? Because they're in rough shape. I'm just
They are.
curious,
They are.
how many you're waterfalling down, like how many are actually usable devices? And our kids have had it the longest.
Sure, but
Like, you know, we're the first 4 years, so Emma,
Like right now, I have carts of them for our out of district kids, but the chargers are different because they've already.
yeah.
So
But I'm
I
just
think that
curious how many are
I think
actually
up to this
usable
point-
down the road.
up till the end of last year, we were really in pretty good shape.
Yeah,
Because generally, kids did a pretty decent job of taking care of things unless they left it on their car when they drove out of the parking lot or, whatever, left it in an open car and the rainstorm came in. The challenge is that, if you recall, we left them with their devices,
yeah.
checked everything out.
Well, even
so
middle
they would have it.
schoolers.
Yeah, we tried to give everything away, and then what has historically happened is that we collect those back, so we get to lay eyes on it, we get to make sure that the
Yeah,
bag and the device and the block and all that match up. So we're about to find out what kind of a status,
waterfall that's gonna be.
what that status looks
I'm just
like.
curious, because I cannot imagine it being very, very, productive
I
this
know,
year.
I know Ron's mentioned salvaging for parts when it is stuff that it's harder to get a hold of.
Yeah,
so.
that's gonna be a little, well, like,
Junkyard.
the seniors this year, like you said, the chargers are different than the sophomore and freshman devices are now. So salvaging and parting out and reusing some of those cords and stuff, so.
We won't have a full picture. We'll collect all the devices. Ron's got a plan he's conveyed to staff about collecting those devices. They'll sit in quarantine, and then we're gonna clean them up, and then Zach and Phil will start going through them. So I would anticipate by the end of summer, we'll have a bit clearer picture of what that, not turning them in and having them out that extended time, what impact that is having.
I was just wondering, because a lot of seniors in the last few days, as they check out, they're like, I thought we kept these. We were going to, and they're like,
I think it was part of
they
the
were a little
conversation.
shocked and finding, some charging cords and some cases, and they're like, I didn't know I was gonna have to turn this in. I don't know. But that was one. Any other questions, you guys?
I don't have a question, but I think it might not be a bad idea to see if we could tentatively schedule the next time we could get together. It may be advantageous to look at that second week of June, just because our hope would be that when we got together for that meeting, we'd have something back from Blue Cross and Blue Shield, but if we could pencil like that Tuesday, Wednesday, potentially even that Thursday in.
And you're talking about like the 7th, 8th, 9th.
Yeah, somewhere in that ballpark.
Yeah, I can work with Amy to try and get the health insurance committee together before that or somewhere close to that to have looked at what we know.
Supplementing my income this summer, I worked June 7th through the 10th from 12:30 to 5:30. I'm teaching over in Lawrence. They've got more lifeguards than they can certify, and they don't have any instructors, so I'm instructing for them. So it'd be later in the evening. I mean, it'd be at least 6 o'clock that week before I could bust over here from all the way out at Free State.
Do you want to tentatively pencil June 8th at 6 o'clock?
It works for me.
You were at the outdoor facility, I was gonna suggest we meet there. but-
I am not going to do lifeguard training. It's gonna be awful enough for the kids here to do lifeguard training in the outdoor pool here. They'll get to do their training in the indoor pool.
Martha, Eric, you-
I'm just thankful that I am not in the same situation here as they are in Lawrence. We've had pretty good response for kids. I have 14 new ones on the list in Eudora, so that should help us a lot. But they didn't open their pool at all last summer, and so they have nobody. She's trying to get 100 lifeguards to fill, so they can have their pools open.
How many do they have besides the one that's just?
They typically have about 130 on staff through the summer to run their indoor and outdoor pool.
Is there just the one big pool downtown by the?
That's well, no, they have a wading pool just down Mass Street across from the courthouse.
Okay,
That's a shallow water pool. It's just a wading pool, but you still have to have somebody staffed there. But it's only like one person or two people will probably rotate that. And then they haven't had their family part of the indoor pool open in over a year. So they've only been operating lap lanes only. You know Lori Mattis, it's Jane Clinton's niece. So I get a little suckered in because Lori's mom and aunt are both business teachers, and I kind of have a heart for her, I guess. So
interesting. You think they'll find it, or think they'll find that?
they will, if they're not gonna get 100 lifeguards. And Lawrence already said they'll close the indoor pool and only open the outdoor pool with what they get.
Including the lap lane.
They're gonna close the entire indoor pool all summer and only operate their outdoor pool.
That's how they'll manage that.
Yeah, so that's, I don't know, I'll take my outdoor right now, which I've already been operating for a couple weeks at this point.
I don't understand, I guess, I don't know how they'll ever get that